Welcome to REIFY Recap Session 2, where we dive into that first step on the pathway to success, dream. This is the session where we learn to dare to dream. Here's a question. What is a dream? So God designed us to dream, and He designed us to dream big. We were literally born to dream, and God actually intends for us to keep that part of us that is designed to dream. God intends for us to keep connected to that throughout our entire life. Never grow beyond it. Never reach a point where we don't need that anymore, where that doesn't serve us anymore. So here's a question for us. What does it mean to dream? Well, dreams are made up of three things, all right? Dreams are made up of, number one, desires. These are the things that you yearn for. What do you yearn for? Dreams are made up of, number two, delights. These are the things that bring you joy and fulfillment and excitement. Okay, so desires, delights. Number three, dreams are made up of divine inspiration. This is the direction of God towards your destiny and the incredible plans that He has for you. So what does it mean to dream? We need to understand that dreams are made up of desires, delights, and divine inspiration. And all of this is designed by God to equip us to dream and to dream big. So here's the great news. You actually don't need to teach yourself how to dream. You are designed to naturally. It is an instinctive part of who we are. But things get in the way, and they will cut you off from the part of you that God designed to dream. So you need to be able to identify those things that are cutting you off from your God-designed ability and desire to dream, so that you can reconnect with that God-given power to dream. And this is really important, especially if you have been about this for a long time, pursuing success, pursuing business, and things like that, because often we fall into a pattern of doing two things. We surrender motivation and we settle for monotony. Just the day-to-day grind. We get really into that rut of surrendering real, genuine motivation and settling for monotony. The second thing we do is surrender enthusiasm and settle for empty effort. Just doing it because it's got to be done and I don't have a choice, right? So these are the two things that we do. We surrender motivation and we settle for monotony, and we surrender enthusiasm and we settle for empty effort. And many of us have reached that point in our life. So how do we get away from that? We understand what, and we identify and we understand what it is that has cut us off from our God-given ability to dream. So what gets in the way of this? We have two things: our beliefs and our brains. Those are the two things that get in the way of our ability to dream. So many have lost the connection with the part of them that dreams. And it doesn't matter where you are on the pathway to success. It is crucial that you stay deeply in tune with the part of you that God designed to dream. So how does it happen? At some point, someone, often many people, put ideas and beliefs in your head that are holding you back. And you bought into these ideas because you didn't know any better, especially if this happened back when you were a kid, and it really did for many of us. You didn't know any better but to accept that as reality, to accept that as truth, and that is okay. But here's the really interesting thing. The moment you bought into those ideas that were implanted by other people, the moment you bought into them, those beliefs became your own. Why is that important? Because that's actually great news. And here's the reason why. You can't change other people and the belief systems that they have, but you can change your own belief systems. So the minute you bought into them, they become your own, which means there's something that you can do about it. How? 3 steps. The first 2 steps are going to address the beliefs, and the third step is going to address the brain and how both of those get in the way. Okay, so step number 1, how do you address these belief systems that other people have implanted you that are holding you back from your God-designed ability and creative power to dream and dream big? Step number 1, identify the resistance messages. Ask yourself, what things am I telling myself that contain languages of defeat, discouragement, division, and disaster? Okay, how do we identify the resistance messages that are holding us back? Ask yourself, what things am I telling myself that contain language of defeat, discouragement, division, and disaster? Step number 2, identify the voice sources. See, it's not enough to just identify what those messages are that we're buying into that are holding us back. We also need to identify where they came from, because that's what they're anchored to deep in our mind, is that original source. So we need to identify where those messages came from. Then our brain can actually begin to process through them and we can do something about it. So identify the voice sources. Ask yourself, where did those narratives come from? Did they come from a parent? Did they come from a friend, an enemy, a spouse even? Did they come from a complete stranger? Did they come from social media, movies, shows? Where did they come from? Next, once you've identified the messages and you understand where they've come from, but this is still step number 2, you need to ask yourself, are my dreams in general inspired by God and the desires and the passions that He has given me, or were they imposed on me by other people and the expectations they have for me? All right, I'll say that again. Are my dreams inspired by God and the desires and the passions that He has given me, or were they imposed on me by other people and the expectations that they have for me? So that's number 1, identify resistance messages. And number 2, identify the voice sources. That addresses our beliefs. Number 3, we're going to address our brains. So here's the other thing that gets in the way. God put us here on this earth to thrive, not just survive. All right, He put us on this earth. He created this earth for us, and then He placed us here to thrive, not just survive, not just get by. Okay? Problem is, He gave us a brain that is incredibly equipped to protect us from danger. It is equipped to help us to survive. That's important. But there's more that He designed for us. So your brain is programmed to survive. It is programmed to keep you safe. It is naturally oriented towards risk assessment. This is powerful. This is important. This is good. Don't hear me wrong. This is an incredible thing. But this can become an unhealthy defense mechanism. It's important to recognize how this function, this ability of our brain to analyze threats in order to keep us safe, how this function serves you well, but also be aware that while your brain has good intentions always, it might not always be working in your best interest. That capacity to protect you can also be holding you back from the best that God has for you. So what do you do about it? This is step number 3. Begin to build a habit of pouring your energy and your emotions into constructive, empowering belief systems. So that's how you address and override your brain's desire to protect you, is by building a habit. That's important, okay? It's not just a one-time thing. This is developing a habit of pouring your energy and your emotions. So not just your efforts, but literally back that up with your emotion and your passion. Pour that into constructive, empowering belief systems. So here are the 3 steps, again, to address what's getting in your way. Number one, identify the resistance messages. What am I buying into? What am I believing that's holding me back? Number two, identify the voice sources. Where did they actually come from? What are those messages anchored to in my memory? And then number three, understand that the reason I bought into those in the first place is because my brain is designed to protect me. And that's a wonderful thing, but that can also hold me back. So what do I do to address that? That's number three. Begin to build a habit of pouring your energy and your emotions into constructive, empowering belief systems. So here we go. That's our conclusion. Celebrate. Dreams are worth rejoicing over. God wants you, and this is very important, God wants you to celebrate your dreams, not define their value. What do I mean by that? Okay, God wants you to celebrate your dreams, not define your value. When you have a dream, something that you're really, really excited about, you should be celebrating that. Allow yourself to feel those positive, invigorating, inspiring emotions that come along with it. Don't be constantly analyzing, okay, is this dream really worth something, worth dreaming over? Should I really be as excited about it as I am? If I play this out, is it really going to pay off the way that I want it to or the way I think it should? Don't get caught up in that. That's not where we're at right now. When you're dreaming, dream big, celebrate those dreams, allow yourself to feel the fullness of the emotion and the passion that God has given you to amplify and feed into that dreaming. It is nearly impossible to know whether or not a dream will work for you until you begin to define it. But that's the next step. That's the vision stage. So we don't have to worry about that right now. Right now we're dreaming and we're celebrating those dreams. So rejoice, and rejoice in the dream itself. Not, okay, I'll be a little excited, but I'm not going to allow myself to really celebrate until I make it happen. I'll get into the real celebration when I make that dream a reality. No, rejoice now, because that's going to be the fuel that actually empowers you into the next steps along the pathway to success, the next steps in making your dream a reality. So dare to dream and dream big, but don't dwell on your dreams, okay? Dare to dream, dream big, but don't stay there. Don't dwell on your dreams. Don't let the dreaming hold you back from the next steps of making those dreams a reality. How? That's what we'll cover in the next session. But first, let's look at some practical application, right? So we've looked at a lot of theoretical stuff. Let's get really, really practical and pragmatic and look at some actionable steps that you can apply today to actually start allowing you to reconnect with that part of you that God designed to dream, and to process through those belief systems that are holding you back and have cut you off from that capacity to dream and dream big. So what do we do? How do we address this? Number one, cultivate community. Surround yourself with people who will provide genuine encouragement and support. And those are two different things. I always emphasize this. There's a difference between encouragement and support. Encouragement is incredible. These are words of encouragement, the way that the people in our community uplift and edify us. Support is more tangible. We all have resources that we can give each other in order to help them on their pathway to success. I have resources, I have strengths, I have skill sets that I can share with you to help you on your journey. You have resources, strengths, and skill sets that you can also share with me to help me on my journey. And so together the community can grow. Number two, train your brain to pursue positivity. Don't just try to pursue positivity. Literally, we are restructuring our brain so that it develops a habit of pursuing positivity. How do you do that? There's two things. Something you do once a day and something you do once a week. All right? Every day, write down something or some things, but at least one thing that gave you joy today, however small or simple. So this is at the end of the day. Every single day, you sit down and you start writing, and I mean write by hand with a pen and a piece of paper. It doesn't work as well if you type it on your phone or if you type it on a computer. There's something that happens when you're actively writing down and the connection between your brain and the act of writing, okay? Every day, write down at least one thing that gave you joy today, however small or simple. Also, write down, this is every day, at least one thing you did today that you're proud of, however small or simple, even if it wasn't on your to-do list. Okay, so this is every day. Every day, write down two things. At least one thing that gave you joy today, however small or simple. And every day, write down at least one thing you did today that you're proud of, even if it wasn't on your to-do list. The second thing you can do is once a week. Once a week, write down your wildest dreams from memory. And that's an important thing. I'll get back to this, okay? So write down, this is once a week, write down your wildest dreams. Don't look at the previous dreams you've written down until after you write down this week's, right? So week 1, you write down your dreams. You just write down your wildest dreams that really inspire or excite. And remember, we're not judging them. We're not judging whether or not they're valid or how they'll play out, right? We're just writing down the dreams that we are excited about. Next week, we go to write those dreams down again. Don't go back to the dreams you wrote last week and review them before you write down the new ones. Write them down completely from memory, and there's a reason why this is important, okay? Number 2, part 2 of this writing down every week. Don't type it, write it. I already told you why that's important. And also, don't prejudge before you write them out whether or not they're silly or unrealistic or stupid, or even whether or not they are good or godly. Now this is a really interesting thing, all right? So don't worry about whether or not they're unrealistic or stupid. Also, as you're writing these down, and I know this sounds strange right now, believe me, I will explain, but don't prejudge whether or not these are good and godly dreams or bad dreams that aren't God's best for you. Just write them down. Here's why. Because sometimes they may be bad dreams, and sometimes you may be like, oh man, I'm not sure God would really be pleased with this dream. I feel kind of weird writing this down. Write it down, and this is why it's so important. Think about it. If you do have ungodly dreams, you want to be aware of them. And it is much easier to hold yourself accountable when you see them in writing right in front of you, rather than if they're just floating around in your head, taking up valuable space because you've never actually acknowledged them. So get them out on paper so that you can actually do something about them. Because if you keep yourself from writing them down, they just stay floating around in your head. You don't actually do about them. They're taking up valuable real estate in your brain. They're actually still working against you. If they're floating around in your heart and mind, and the Spirit sheds light on them, how easy is it to just move them around into another dark corner and move on? But if they're written out on a page, you have to face them. So write it all, even if it makes you uncomfortable. So there we go. Those are the practical steps, the actionable steps that you can do. Every day, write down 2 things, at least one thing that gave you joy and at least one thing that you're proud of. And then every week, write down your wildest dreams. The next week, don't go back and read them. Write down your wildest dreams from scratch, from memory. Because the interesting thing is that then afterwards, when you do go back and compare and contrast, you get to see what's shifting, what's different. I wrote down the same dream this week as I did last week, but it's written a lot differently. I used some different words. I described things in a different way. That's really interesting. Why am I experiencing this shift? So write it down new and fresh every single week, and then compare how it's shifting and how it's changing week to week. Those are the things you can do. That's how we learn to dream, to dare to dream, and to dream big.